Hello everyone, I'm Jim Longworth and welcome to the premiere edition of County Connections, coming to you from the beautiful Forsyth County Government Center in downtown Winston-Salem, and we appreciate their hospitality here. Over the next half hour, we'll cover a lot of ground, talking about some very important programs and services and initiatives that we all need to be aware of, and we have some very special guests to do that. Lots of topics ranging from, everything from youth development to EMT and paramedic training. We'll get to all of that later. But where we want to start is with this gentleman. Introducing Dudley Watts. He's County Manager for Forsyth County, and thanks for having us today.
Thank you, Jim. Glad to be here.
You know, I imagine that managing a county this size has been quite a challenge, well, on a day-to-day basis, but then with COVID, it had to be just really a challenge. How has the county done in its response overall?
Jim, it's been a roller coaster ride. I think back to March now, 18 months ago or so, when the hospitals called and wanted us to essentially shut down county operations and take an emergency action, and with what they saw coming and the impact on the hospital system, and through that we geared up for the worst of it. And went through kind of the first generation of that. It required a public health response that we have not seen. We had planned for. We had done a flu pandemic that we used as a guideline, but sure. But we put that in place all the time, trying to continue operations across county government. And I am very proud of the staff and the workers here that we kept county operations open every single day through that. We had to modify operations a bit, but the dedication that you saw from employees and from leadership across county departments was amazing. So
It really was. And now there was some American Recovery Plan funds. What was the status of that?
So the first set of that was what was called Coronavirus Relief Funds, or CRF funds. That helped us in the fall. And then there was a round two of that, and then there was now we're dealing with some ARPA funds, American Recovery Plan Act funds, that have a much longer spend requirement with them, and so we'll be dealing with that money through the end of December 24, and the board's really in the first part of the effort with that.
But very quickly, financially, is the county healthy through all this?
So that has been probably the most fascinating part of this, is that we took some measures that were budget measures early on, because the state was telling us we were going to have about a 40% sales tax revenue shortfall. We planned for that. That never happened, and so the last fall the board did reappropriated some dollars that came in. Those went to the schools. They went kind of across county departments. And then we went into this year's budget. And so at the same time you have the coronavirus, the virus response, the impact on the economy, locally our economy has been pretty good through it. And it actually has placed demands on services that we thought, in an economic slowdown, the demand's not there.
But
it's been the exact opposite.
But it is, and we'll get into that later on. Before we lose time on this, let's get away from COVID for just a second. There are a lot of other issues that impact the county. Give me an example.
If you look at our emergency response, we've been dealing with COVID, but our overdoses in those departments have stayed at levels that really shouldn't be. Gun violence obviously has been an issue. The efforts that are required from planning, because we've got building starts. You've got lots of planning activity. You've got lots of building inspection activity. You're going to hear from some.
And it's sort of become accelerated, hasn't it?
It has. It has.
What about the final thing? What about the Beltway project? Give me an update on that.
Well, I think people in our community are seeing the construction that's going on, but they're also seeing some blighted areas that are getting affected because housing that was impacted by the MAP Act, it was taken down for the Beltway project, and so. Connectivity across the county is going to be impacted. I looked yesterday, August of 23 is when that will open. That will substantially change some traffic patterns for the better, I think, in the community, and it's going to create some economic opportunities.
Well, I want to just throw this out throughout the program as we can, just to mention the general website, forsythcountync.gov. You can go to for general information. I'll try to remember to remind everybody about that as we go through forsythcountync.gov. Dudley, I know you have a lot to do. Thanks for stopping by and doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim.
All right, we'll be right back.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Back now in this premiere episode of County Connections, coming to you once again from the beautiful Forsyth County Government Center in downtown Winston-Salem. And on the next few minutes, we want to talk about something very important to all of us here in the county, and that's emergency medical services, EMTs, paramedics. Let's find out where all that stands with a good friend of ours. Daren Ziglar is Director of Emergency Services for Forsyth County. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
What's the current status of EMS calls in Forsyth County?
Well, probably the two best words to describe it would be extremely busy. We're seeing record numbers of calls on a daily basis.
Now, I'm going to ask a stupid question, I guess, because everything we think about nowadays has something to do with COVID. So I guess my question to you is, are you saying that it's increased because of COVID, or it's just increased anyway?
I think it's a little bit of both. The three kind of big categories that we've seen with this is an increase with our COVID calls. We've seen that in the last 2 months. We've seen a significant increase in violence calls with the gun violence. And then, you've not heard as much coverage about it, but the opioid epidemic is still, we're still running a large number of events such as that.
And that's sad. We're going to get into that a little bit more later in the program about that program. But what's the current staffing status, would you say, for EMTs and paramedics? How are we doing there?
Well, we're still don't have adequate staffing. I mean, we're still in a struggle with recruitment, retaining personnel, and it's no different than really all of our urban settings around the state and for that matter, the country.
Around the country, same thing.
Exactly.
What's going on with that? I mean, why?
Well, it's a difficult job. Two, the workload, the work demand right now is incredibly high. There is a lot of opportunities out there for paramedics, and so they can be out here battling COVID, or they could work in a clinical setting. There's just a lot of different job opportunities for paramedics.
What are you doing to try to address the shortage?
So there's different things. We're working with both internal and external groups with the county, working on what we call our paramedic pipeline, and that goes into public education as far as high schools and early college of introducing this as a career. We're working closely with our partners at Forsyth Tech to...
Yeah, I wanted to mention that you and I were together on another show earlier, and I was fascinated and really kind of shocked at what you're doing with Forsyth Tech in terms of incentives and bonuses and stuff. Tell the folks at home if they don't know about it.
And really, this is something Forsyth Tech has really stepped up with. They looked at some of the ARPA money, some of the foundation money, and really provided some incentives for people to go through their paramedic program. Basically, it turns out that it'd be no cost for the education, the books, the uniforms, and they're actually providing a monetary incentive when you start and then a monetary incentive when you graduate.
Didn't I hear something? Didn't you tell me a few weeks ago it was like $2,000 or something?
I think it's $500 when you start, when you enroll, and then I think it's $2,000 if you graduate.
Well, what a great incentive to want to go into that.
Exactly.
I mean, you want to love the work. You want to go into it for your own personal reasons, but to know that tuition is paid and you can come out with a $2,000 bonus on top of that, that's something else.
And it really introduces people to the career, gives them a good look at it. It's something we're deeply involved with the college on. So, we're hoping to use this as a direct recruitment link for
set up a
Forsyth
pipeline
County.
of people, exactly. Coming through there. I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, what if somebody wants to go through training, whether it's Forsyth Tech or not, or they just want to get in touch with your department, find out more about it? What do people do? Is there an application, or what goes on?
So if they're already credentialed as an EMT or a paramedic or an advanced EMT, they can go to the county's website. We keep constant job postings up there, so it's pretty much a perpetual posting. They can reach out like that. They can reach out to us through our website at fcems.com or through our social media page on Facebook.
And just to keep it simple, what I thought I'd do is just also mention forsythcountync.gov, which we're mentioning throughout the program. And the reason I bring that up is because if you want to do that, you can click through to emergency services, and then that puts you on the page that Daren was talking about. Daren, in all seriousness, we kid around sometime, you and I, but I really appreciate what you do and how you do it, and you're making a real difference. And thanks for doing this. All right, we'll be right back after this.
There's a place to share gossip about the office party fun, and a place to share the story you tell everyone. There's a place to share a laugh about when things went wrong, and a place to share the video of you dancing to your song. There's a place to share spare change, lunch, and your time. But we could all be better at sharing how we're feeling inside. 76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
Back now on County Connections, our premiere episode, and once again coming to you from the Forsyth County Government Center in Winston-Salem, downtown Winston-Salem, and we appreciate their hospitality and all the hard work they did to invite us in here. Earlier in the program, there were some references made to the opioid crisis, and I said we were going to talk about that later on, but sort of in a different vein. I want to talk about this settlement and the settlement funds that have come from abuses, really, not because of people taking it and overdoses, but because of some of the companies that did things they shouldn't have done, and so there ended up being settlement monies. Well, there's an expert in this who is dealing with this for the county. Let's talk to him now. Gordon Watkins is a Forsyth County attorney, and thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
We've heard a lot, as I said, about the crisis. Bring me up to speed now on where we stand with everything.
Sure. As a little bit of background, as you indicated, this has been going on for a while. In 1995, Purdue Pharma introduced the first popular opioid, OxyContin, and they marketed it as a non-addictive narcotic that could be used to treat any pain. What happened, unfortunately, is that many people became addicted to it, and hundreds of thousands of Americans have died since then because of this. Forsyth County, along with many other counties across the country and several states, brought lawsuits against the manufacturers, the distributors, and other parties to address this issue, to curb the opioids and to get some payment for all the damage they inflicted. Recently, the manufacturers and the distributors have proposed a settlement which amounts to $30 billion nationwide.
Now, how did you personally get involved in this? Did it fall on you because you're the county attorney, or did there something that you wanted to get involved with on a more personal level, or what?
Well, it really happened almost accidentally. In January of 2020, National Council representing counties, including Forsyth County, and the State Attorney General's Office invited us to Wake County to discuss a potential settlement. As part of that settlement, they said that counties would receive 15%, 15% of North Carolina settlement proceeds. I was shocked when I heard that. I thought that was ridiculous because counties are at the heart of many programs that treat opioid addiction.
Right.
I thought the percentage should be much higher. And so I proposed that the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners establish a committee that could negotiate directly with the North Carolina Attorney General's office so we could do better than that. And the NCACC subsequently formed what's called the 555 Committee.
So now, how are they involved in terms of, is it direct allocation of funds so that you let them know what you need and how you're going to do it, and they make sure it's funneled to you? So how does it work procedurally?
So what happened was this committee, which is 5 county commissioners, 5 county managers, 5 county attorneys, negotiated with the State Attorney General's office. And so what is going to happen is 85% of North Carolina settlement proceeds are going to go directly to counties and large municipalities. The counties can decide how they will use that money, but it has to be spent on opioid treatment and prevention. The other 15% will stay with the county. This is really the strongest allocation agreement for counties across the nation.
And of course, now I don't know anything about this. You're having to school me on it. But like, if you have the County Department of Health and they're doing some great programs and whatever, then you would be the one, or you and Dudley, or sort of decide how the funds are going to go to specifically to the health department for a particular program, or how is that going to work?
So what's going to happen is every year there's going to be a meeting in the county, which will include the county and all the municipalities will be invited. And so it'll be a community meeting to form ideas as to how to spend that money, but ultimately it would be up to the Board of Commissioners to determine how Forsyth's money is spent.
Are you allowed to say publicly, I mean, how much money are we talking about eventually that you'll be able to allocate?
So eventually, the payments are over 18 years. Forsyth County stands to receive approximately $22 million.
That's great. And I know it's going to do some good, and it's unfortunate we have to spend it to do some good because the problem is so out of control. But I really do appreciate what you're doing to take the lead on this. And not to embarrass you, but if it hadn't been for you, then those percentages would have been a lot lower of funding that we were going to get. So, you know, if we had a studio audience, we'd be applauding you for that effort. And thanks, because that money's going to make a big difference. I appreciate what you do.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Gordon, thanks. We'll be right back after this.
Every year, 4.5 million young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 visit the ER.
It's every parent's nightmare.
Umergency gives you all the tools you need to quickly and effectively manage your family's emergency. Umergency provides instant access to vital resources, customized to your student's campus and local community, digital consent form, and built-in urgent alert button. Umergency gives you peace of mind when you need it most. Download your Umergency app now.
Back now on the premiere edition of County Connections, coming to you from the beautiful Forsyth County Government Center in downtown Winston-Salem. And over the next few minutes, we want to talk about Extension Service, and with a very, very special guest. With me right now is April Bowman. She's Extension Agent for Livestock, Forages, and 4-H Youth Development with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Center in Forsyth County. And thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Sort of a way to get into this, why don't you just briefly tell folks what cooperative extension entails?
So we are literally an extension of the two land-grant universities in North Carolina, NC State University and NCA&T State University. And we share research-based information with the citizens here in the county. We try to enrich their lives and the economy through educational programs and partnerships. But we focus on agriculture and food, health and nutrition, and then, of course, 4-H youth development.
All important areas, and we could do 3 hours on that. But in the few minutes that we have, before we get into something else, I wanted to stop and talk about this 4-H thing, because my question is, why is youth development so important from your perspective?
So 4-H teaches youth life skills, and we can use pretty much any subject matter to teach those life skills through. And so that kind of makes us unique. You know, I think a lot of other places use the subject matter and are focused on the subject matter. But we're using hands-on experiences to teach those life skills. And we actually participated in a study through Tufts University. So we have the research to back these life skills. And it shows that youth that are involved in 4-H programs are 4 times more likely to give back to their community. At least 2 times more likely to be engaged in citizenship activities.
And expose them early on to what this is all about, because there's so many varied careers
Yes.
that
Yes.
could come from this, aren't
Yes.
there?
And then, of course, we have a STEM focus where we talk about science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we do that through a variety of ways. We still have our traditional overnight camps. We're already recruiting for summer 2022. I'd love to talk to people about overnight camp. But we also have our traditional 4-H club program where youth can participate in a long-term monthly experience. And then we're doing some short-term programs too as well.
Just to put you on the spot, we didn't rehearse this or anything, but you mentioned the term quality of life a minute ago. Give me one example of how your work helps with quality of life. What do you mean? Give me one example.
Well, so to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about my livestock role, where I work as a livestock extension agent. We had a new family move to Forsyth County, and they purchased some land, and this was kind of the beginning of the pandemic, and we were able to work together, and they purchased a small sheep flock, and we were able to provide the education for them to shear their own sheep.
All right.
And they were able to do that successfully. They've bred those sheep and now have live offspring from them. We did a online virtual seminar series on raising backyard poultry. And I love this, but because of the pandemic, everybody was homeschooling. And so the kids, this was a lunch and learn series that we did during lunchtime. And so the kids were sitting with their mom watching this educational series. The kids went out and bought their own poultry.
Wow.
And so now not only does mom and dad have their flock of chicken, but the children have their flocks of chicken that they are raising, and now they're selling eggs.
That's great. That's a great success story. Now, what about this new agricultural center? Bring me up to speed on what that is, why it's needed, the whole deal.
So our building that we're in now is an older facility, and we've outgrown it. Not only does it need updating, but we've outgrown the space. When we hold our pesticide certification classes to help people study and learn what they need for the pesticide exam, we're out of parking spaces, we're out of seats inside.
Right.
For our 4-H presentation and public speaking and talent show, we need a larger facility as well. So a new updated event center would be able to help us with those events. We also do a lot of cooking demonstrations and nutrition classes, so this would give us an updated facility for that as well. And then we hold a variety of livestock shows, and we're actually planning a poultry and rabbit show for early 2022. And currently we're renting facilities to hold those outdoor events in.
Right.
So if the county had their own facility, this would allow us to be able to do that at our facility.
Sure. Now, when will this be up and running?
That's a good question. We are just in the
Did I ask?
planning.
Maybe I asked an insensitive question.
No, we're just in the planning phases, trying to decide exactly what this facility would look like and what our space needs are, and then we'll move forward with the planning and design.
Before time gets away, I thought I'd ask you a personal question. Why does all this matter to you? Why did you want to go into this field?
So I actually grew up in 4-H, as did my family. They were 4-H members, and when I was 8 years old, the county 4-H agent approached my mom and asked her if she would consider leading a club, because at the time in the 80s, 4-H was coming out of the school system and going to volunteer-led 4-H clubs. And so she started leading that club, and I joined 4-H, and I went to NC State and got a degree in agriculture education, and it's the only college that I applied to.
Yeah,
So
that
I
was your
knew-
plan A, B, and C,
Yes.
and all the.
Yes.
That's great. At age 8, you knew what. See, at age 8, I thought I was going to end up playing for the New York Yankees. Now, why are you successful and I'm not? See, I don't know that. You're just enthusiastic.
And like all farm girls, I think around age 10, I did want to be a veterinarian, but.
And then that changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I love what you do. And I just want to mention once again for folks, ForsythCountyNC.gov is the general website, and there are ways you can click on to get to Cooperative Extension. April, thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back.
This is what too much sounds like. This is what stress feels like. And this is what help feels like. If you've lost a job, worry about your next meal, or have trouble making it through the day, we can help. Text STRESS to 211-211 to find a solution.
Back now on the final segment of this premiere episode of County Connections, coming to you from the Forsyth County Government Center in downtown Winston-Salem. And as we wrap up today, one of the things we wanted to talk about is water and wastewater and septic systems and wells. And I know a lot of you are saying, wait a minute, I live in a town or I live in a city, I'm watching this. I don't need to listen to this. Well, wait a minute, this impacts public health, and I want you to know why. Because people in some of the outlying areas and rural areas need to sink a well. They need to put in a septic system, but it's not just something that's done automatically. There's a process. The man with me right now knows about that process. Charles Cahill is Environmental Health Supervisor and Water and Wastewater Section Head for the Forsyth County Department of Public Health, and we welcome you to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about the permitting process for wells and septic systems.
Sure. The first thing I like to say is a lot of times the applicants will come through the front door with a misconception. I can walk in, pay for my permit, and get it in hand. But it is a process. It's a really extensive application. They got to submit a site plan. We've got to have property corners marked. Houses have to be marked before we can actually go out there. And once we do go out there and perform the soil evaluation, pretty extensive process for us. And if we found a spot that is determined to be suitable, then we can go ahead and permit. On occasion, we find an area where we run into the fact that we can't permit. and then we try to give some options, try to help them out through the process. And if everything does work out, then we can write them a permit.
Right, and you have to hit the right area, and we all, this has happened to me before too. You buy a piece of land, or you want to buy a piece of land, and you think everything's going to be perfect. But from a public health standpoint, for everybody's health, you have to make sure that the soil is going to accept where the well needs to go and the septic system, and what you do is so important. But now, here's something that Dudley touched on earlier in the program about, as we're still in the throes of the pandemic, all the things that have increased and the extra things that are happening. And the new home construction has just gone berserk. It's just really grown. How has that affected what you do with permitting?
Well, that has impacted us pretty heavily because it affects our backlogs, how many applications come in. We've seen about a 20% increase in applications, which equates to the houses being built. So it has set us back a little bit, has affected our backlogs. But and the thing that kicked us a little bit was we didn't predict this. No one knew this was coming through the door.
Because we had the lockdowns and the shutdowns and the this and people not having to work from home and people watching their dollars and not knowing where the next dollars come from, and then all of a sudden everybody's building a house.
Yep. That really, like I said, that surprised us, and we've been playing catch up ever since.
What about road construction? How does road construction, what effect does that have on what you're doing or what people do with wells and septic systems?
Yeah, sure. So surprisingly, that is something that a lot of people don't think about. They see a road coming through, they see DOT coming through, they're upset about their property being taken. But then it comes down to most of the time whether or not they're taking their septic system, whether or not they're taking their well, or whether or not they're taking the repair area. Most lots, when they are permitted with a septic system and a repair area. So they have a place to repair it or fix it if it ever fails. And those are the things we have to go out and we have to evaluate whether or not it's impacting. And that's, again, another surprise for some homeowners then.
Yeah, now let me double back on the COVID thing just a minute, because I guess COVID has something to do with everything directly and indirectly these days. How has that impacted in general on how you've had to adjust, you and your team, your workload, the way of doing things, the way of communicating? Have you had to change or adapt anything in what you normally do?
Oh, sure. Now, that's another thing. When all this actually came about, my section stayed in the office, stayed true to what they were doing because this machine did not stop. And the funny thing that popped up, a lot of people are at home. A lot of people want to do additions. A lot of people want to do decks. And anytime you're on a septic system in Forsyth County, if you want to do any sort of improvement to your footprint of your home, you've got to go through our office first.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So if I have a septic system and I just want to extend the deck or create a deck or something, I need to call you.
You have to go through us first. And building inspections is nice, and they'll send you right our way. And again, it's another application, another process.
I didn't realize that.
We have to verify setbacks off the septic tanks, verify setbacks off the well. If you're adding a bedroom, then we have to actually add to the septic system.
If people go to the general website, I know there's some, we can't get into the real long ones here, but if you go to the general website, is there a way to find what you're doing to get more information?
Oh, sure. If you go to the, if you can start with the Forsyth County
NC.gov.
Yes, sir. And then click on its Department of Public Health. That's where environmental health is actually in, is in the health department. And then we have a spot you can click on for environmental health, and then you can go down to septic system and wells, and it'll explain everything.
Well, I tell you, Charles, we can't do without you and your team, and we appreciate what you're doing. I know you're under the gun but in a way, if anything has good come out of this, and nothing much has out of this whole mess we've been in with COVID, but people are wanting to build, people are wanting to grow and keep going on with their lives, and you help them do that.
That part of the economy has not stopped, so that's a good thing.
I appreciate what you do.
Yes, sir.
Well, we just mentioned a minute ago the website. I'll give it to you one more time. ForsythCountyNC.gov is a general website that will take you to all these different areas and departments that we've talked about throughout the program. Also want to say a shout out and a thanks to Dudley Watts for making this facility available to us here in the Forsyth County Government Center, to Jason Ring, Tracy Doyle, and their team for putting this all together for this pilot episode. And we hope that this will continue on and that we'll see you in future episodes as well. For now, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next time.